Throughout history, dark forces seem to have emerged from the depths to influence human culture, art, and power in ways many would never notice. Whether in ancient temple sculptures, Renaissance paintings, or modern music videos and logos, an invisible presence suggests that certain images and symbols were crafted for more than mere entertainment or worship. Could they be gateways to ancient demonic entities, visual and auditory invocations shaping the perceptions and desires of generations? These forces are often represented by figures like Moloch, the demon god worshipped in ancient Canaan with child sacrifices, Lucifer, the fallen angel from biblical and Kabbalistic tradition, symbolizing pride and materialistic enlightenment, and Baphomet, an icon of mystical dualism widely used as a symbol of occultism and inversion. In various cultural expressions, especially in music and fashion, what we see might hint at a silent conspiracy where these entities, through elites and secret societies, continue to guide humanity. But to what extent have these figures truly infiltrated our lives and shaped our culture without us even realizing it? The influence of demonic entities on art dates back to ancient civilizations, where figures like Moloch and Baal dominated the collective imagination through rituals of worship and sacrifice. In ancient Canaan, Moloch was worshipped in dark ceremonies, described in the book of Leviticus as an abomination. Children were offered as sacrifices to gain favor and protection, a practice condemned and associated with absolute evil. Sculptures and statues of Moloch were carved in bronze and displayed in temples, with outstretched arms where offerings were placed. This idol of Moloch, with a bull's head and human body, also appears in temples of other cultures, such as Carthaginian, where human sacrifices were documented practices. This tradition of idolatry was severely criticized in the scriptures, seen as a practice diverting people from the true God and delivering them to the power of evil. Over the centuries, these images have been reinterpreted, but their symbolic essence remains in the shadows. In ancient Rome, for example, images of Saturn, a god associated with famine and destruction, bear similarities to Moloch and suggest a continuity in the worship of destructive entities. The connection between these entities and sacrifices is a recurring theme. Saturn, identified by the biblical god as a symbol of time and mortality, devoured his own children in Roman mythology, an image symbolizing the consumption of life by power. These iconic details reappear even in modern art. The Renaissance, a period of cultural and mystical rediscovery, brought forth Hermetic philosophy and an interest in the occult. Leonardo da Vinci and other Renaissance masters like Botticelli, for example, incorporated esoteric symbols in their works, reflecting a fascination with the occult and the unknown divine. For scholars of Renaissance symbolism, these works include elements connected to Kabbalah and Hermeticism, beliefs seeking to reveal the universe's and human soul secrets through magic and alchemy. However, some believe these symbols went beyond esoteric study, containing elements of invocation and reverence toward entities of the lower spheres. Some of Da Vinci's works, such as The Last Supper, are read with an occult perspective that suggests dualities and Kabbalistic symbolism mirroring material and spiritual, good and evil, a reference to the duality of entities like Lucifer. Michelangelo also stands out with the subtle representation of demonic figures in his works. The Sistine Chapel mural, for example, includes details that some associate with occultism, including hidden faces and dark forms in clouds and settings, suggesting he embedded messages that could only be interpreted by the initiated. Could this be a way of communicating that angelic and demonic beings are in constant conflict over the human soul, visible only to those who understand the universe's secrets? This hidden symbolism was not limited to church walls. Alchemists of the time, like Paracelsus, studied the forces of creation and destruction, depicting hybrid creatures and images of pacts with powerful entities in alchemical illustrations. These illustrations were not mere metaphors of the alchemical process. They included references to rituals and enchantments, often invoking forces that challenged church doctrines. In his works, Paracelsus documented creatures and demons, describing how to invoke them to gain power and knowledge. Such practices moved from occult knowledge for the enlightened to reach the Illuminati and other societies that sought to dominate both the spiritual and material worlds. This Renaissance symbolism raises a crucial question. How far did these artists and philosophers go in their pursuit of power? Were their esoteric knowledge and studies an attempt to touch the divine, or could they have been a dangerous approach to dark forces? The symbolism in the art and literature of the time suggests that art might indeed have been used as a key, a portal opening our perception to the shadow world, where demonic forces may have been invoked. In modernity, the persistence of these demonic symbols points to the continuity of this hidden pursuit. Are we faced with symbols that, regardless of culture, still carry the presence of these entities? Thus, we see that symbols associated with these beings are, for some, a means to store or invoke ancient powers. For those who consider themselves heirs to the mysteries, such as modern occultists and secret societies, these symbols possess a living energy, an inheritance of the ancient mysteries that guide the elites and their thirst for power and dominion. We can observe how these symbols transcend times and cultures, always serving the same purpose: to channel and honor entities that hold a force beyond human understanding. In practice, these artistic representations are more than a cultural heritage. They are symbolic portals connecting the human to the spiritual world. Are artists, therefore, aware of their role as intermediaries between the physical and spiritual worlds? The elites and their connections with occult forces are not merely urban legends, but narratives that have persisted since antiquity, when rulers and powerful figures sought favor from gods and demons. Secret societies that operate to this day, like the Illuminati and Freemasonry, have historically manipulated symbols and rituals tied to demonic entities. The Illuminati, officially founded in Bavaria in the 18th century, were known for their pursuit of enlightened knowledge, a wisdom that transcended traditional religious boundaries and aligned with spiritual forces considered forbidden and subversive. The practices of these groups extend beyond private gatherings. In events attracting influential figures from various fields, such as the Bohemian Grove, specific symbols and ceremonies are employed in reverence to figures like Moloch, represented by a giant owl statue. This annual event gathers members of the global elite in a ritual where an effigy is symbolically sacrificed before the owl, an emblem of Moloch. Participants engage in an enactment called the cremation of care, which many interpret as a ceremony to release worldly responsibilities, sacrificing their concerns to gain protection and success. For many occult scholars, this is seen as a ritual of purification and submission to demonic forces, where Moloch's owl represents dark knowledge and the sacrifice of values in exchange for power. This symbolism of control and invocation is further embodied in Freemasonry, where the all-seeing eye is a central emblem, representing omnipresent and vigilant power. This symbol, also known as the Eye of Horus in ancient Egypt, is interpreted as a sign of power and insight, often connected to Lucifer in occult contexts. In higher levels of Masonic initiation, such as the 33rd degree, the symbolism intensifies, and the initiate encounters practices that include reverence for the bearer of light, an allusion to Lucifer. While not all Freemasons are aware of this connection, many believe that the ultimate aim of secret societies is to reach a level of power and mastery that transcends human morality and connects with ancient entities. In modern occultism, Lucifer is often viewed as an archetype of knowledge and rebellion, and his image is widely explored in ceremonies. As the fallen angel in biblical tradition, Lucifer represents the quest for enlightenment through absolute freedom, symbolizing the human spirit's independence from established rules. For those within secret societies, he is revered not as a malevolent demon but as a symbol of wisdom, capable of offering power and knowledge to those willing to walk the path of shadows. This symbolism appears in the architecture of monuments, currency, and even in artistic projects funded by elite members, suggesting that reverence for Lucifer remains hidden but active. Alongside Lucifer and Moloch, another entity often associated with elite practices is Baphomet, an enigmatic figure represented as a creature with a goat's head, wings, and a human body. Baphomet is a symbol of duality and balance between opposing forces, used in occult practices as an emblem of unification between light and darkness. The worship of Baphomet, documented among the Templars and other esoteric groups, is seen by scholars as a celebration of wisdom that transcends moral duality, promoting a form of transcendence accessible only to the enlightened. Baphomet's symbol is present in various modern practices, from religious ceremonies to logos of organizations and artistic events. Secret rituals involving these entities follow a pattern reminiscent of spiritual pacts and alliances. The idea that elites sacrifice or surrender their morality and principles in exchange for power and wealth is expressed in the documented practices of these groups, particularly in societies like the Illuminati, where pact and invocation are recurring principles. Thus, we have a scenario where the invocation of demonic forces, as seen in ancient sacrifices to Moloch, not only persists but is reinvented through modern symbols and rituals. However, for many, these symbols are not merely relics of an ancient cult but active elements shaping the collective mind. By maintaining these rituals, elites may be renewing their connections with these entities, seeking to reaffirm their position of dominance. The remaining question is, by participating in such rituals, Is humanity as a whole indirectly involved in these pacts, perpetuating a symbolic and energetic relationship with occult forces? With the rise of modern pop culture, demonic symbolism and occultism have become integrated into visual arts and entertainment, subtly capturing the collective unconscious in a powerful way. Music, in particular, has a long history of association with the occult and demonic figures. Bands like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and the Rolling Stones paved the way for widespread use of occult symbols and themes, especially with references to entities like Lucifer and Baphomet. Jimmy Page, guitarist of Led Zeppelin, was known for his interest in the practices of Aleister Crowley, a famous occultist and advocate of Lucifer as the light bearer, a figure of enlightenment in opposition to traditional values. The use of pentagrams, invocation symbols, and lyrics filled with dark references formed an aesthetic that, for some, represented more than just an artistic rebellion phase. In music videos, occult symbols have become a constant, especially in contemporary pop and rap genres. Artists like Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Beyoncé have been accused of including demonic symbolism in their performances and videos, such as the Eye of Horus and the horned hand sign, gestures associated with the worship of Lucifer. In Jay-Z's Run This Town video, masked figures and visuals suggestive of ritualistic ceremonies reinforce a connection to the occult. In No Church in the Wild, Jay-Z and Kanye West introduce themes of chaos and rebellion, an allusion to Lucifer's rebellious nature as the fallen angel. For occult scholars, these symbols are not merely aesthetic references, but gestures that initiate the audience into a mystical narrative, bridging the viewer to deeper, more intense energies. In pop, Beyoncé and Lady Gaga are frequently linked to occult symbols. During her Super Bowl performance, Beyoncé was accused of representing Baphomet through specific poses and gestures, such as forming an inverted triangle, a symbol of invocation and connection with the spiritual world. Lady Gaga often uses inverted crosses, sacrificial symbols, and the all-seeing eye, as seen in her Bad Romance video, where scenes reminiscent of possession and domination rituals are present. The repetition of these elements in large events suggests an attempt to normalize demonic symbolism, making it appealing and part of modern cultural identity. Cinema is another powerful vehicle for inserting occult themes. Films like Rosemary's Baby, directed by Roman Polanski, openly explore themes of demonic invocation and the introduction of demonic entities into the human world. The plot centers around an occult pact to carry the devil's child, reflecting themes of human submission to a dark force that seeks to endure through rituals. Another classic example is The Exorcist, which portrays the possession of a young girl by a demon named Pazuzu. Although Pazuzu is a figure from Mesopotamian mythology, the film realistically explores possession and the battle between good and evil, linking pop culture to humanity's archetypal fears. In recent years, productions like Hereditary and Constantine continue to explore and popularize these themes. Hereditary, for example, centers on the demon Paimon, a real figure documented in texts like the Lesser Key of Solomon, known for granting wealth and knowledge to those who invoke his name. The films focus on the hereditary nature of the pact, where the entity is passed down through generations, reflects the idea that certain pacts with demonic forces are not easily broken and impact an entire family lineage. These films not only depict the occult but allow viewers to experience the closeness of demonic entities, reinforcing the notion that these forces are accessible and present. Visual art and contemporary fine arts are also steeped in occult themes. Renowned artists like Marina Abramovic, known for her performance spirituality, use symbols and esoteric practices such as spirit cooking, a ritual inspired by invoking ancestral forces through symbolic ingredients. In her performances, Abramovic explores themes of sacrifice and submission, often in settings reminiscent of occult ceremonies, where blood and dark figures serve as channels of energy. This type of art, when made public and popular, seems to tap into a desire to touch the collective unconscious, drawing viewers into a ritualistic experience. In fashion and design, brands and runways have turned occult symbolism into a trend. A recent example is Gucci, which in its shows has presented inverted crucifixes, elements of magic, and attire reminiscent of invocation rituals, such as robes and pointed hats. These shows are often set in dark environments surrounded by candles and symbols resembling altars, suggesting that fashion is not merely about style but acts as a collective ritual where symbols of power and spiritual dominance are celebrated. For the audience, this is simply an aesthetic spectacle. For occult scholars, however, it is a means of promoting and normalizing occult symbolism on a massive scale, involving people in the ritual without their awareness. When we add these elements together, We see how modern pop culture, with its impactful images and subliminal messages, functions as a gateway for the acceptance of the occult and the demonic. Are these productions merely entertainment, or are they a form of gradual initiation, allowing humanity to approach and normalize interaction with these entities and their symbols? Subliminal messages and occult symbols are not confined to the visual arts and entertainment, but have expanded into daily life through commercial products. Some of the world's largest corporations feature elements in their logos and campaigns that, for occult scholars, directly evoke demonic entities and principles. For instance, Starbucks' logo of a two-tailed mermaid is interpreted as a reference to the goddess Lilith, known in Jewish folklore as Adam's first wife and often associated with demonic feminine entities and sexual rebellion. The image may seem harmless, but Lilith, in occult traditions, symbolizes independence and seduction, values that could be subliminally promoted to the consumer, attracting them to occult ideals. Other examples include the Procter & Gamble logo, which for decades displayed a crescent moon and stars, elements frequently linked to paganism and the invocation of astral powers. These elements were eventually removed due to public controversy and associations with the occult, but for many, the original symbolism had already influenced the popular imagination, leaving an energetic signature on the product. For occult theorists, the use of such elements in popular brands and everyday items reinforces the idea that, by consuming these products, people are symbolically engaging in an invisible alliance with ancient forces, absorbing their values and symbols. Disney has also faced accusations of using subliminal messages and occult symbolism in its productions and parks. Films like The Lion King contain hidden images that some believe suggest words and symbols associated with the occult. In one scene, dust particles allegedly form the word sex, which, for those interpreting it as subliminal, reflects an attempt to subtly manipulate the audience and expose them to sexual themes. Disney is often linked to Masonic practices, given that its founder, Walt Disney, had known ties to esoteric and Masonic societies, reinforcing the idea that certain values and symbols are intentionally embedded. Another brand heavily criticized for its iconography is Monster Energy, which uses the number 666, the number of the beast from the Book of Revelation, disguised as stylized lines in its logo. In Hebrew, the symbol Vav represents the number 6, so 3 consecutive Vavs create the number 666. The brand slogan, Unleash the Beast, reinforces this association, suggesting that consuming the product brings one closer to powerful, demonic forces. In advertising, the brand often uses images of chaos and rebellion, appealing to youth with the lure of transgression, a principle strongly associated with Lucifer, who in biblical tradition represents the ultimate symbol of rebellion. In fashion shows, occult symbolism has become a marked trend. Major industry names like Gucci and Balenciaga display collections exploring symbols of spiritual inversion and subversion. Balenciaga, for example, has used the inverted cross in some collections, a symbol known in demonology as an emblem of rejection of divine authority. Gucci, in another presentation, featured pointed hats and garments reminiscent of ritual robes from Hermetic cults, creating an atmosphere akin to visual worship rituals. For many, these shows create an almost ritualistic experience, exposing the audience to symbols and energies reminiscent of invocation ceremonies without them consciously realizing what they are witnessing. Advertising itself is a fertile ground for subliminal messages. Campaigns from companies like Nike and Apple are often associated with Luciferian symbolism. Nike's swoosh logo is interpreted by some as a crescent moon representing the duality of illumination, a Luciferian concept of enlightenment through rebellion. Apple, on the other hand, uses a bitten apple, referencing the forbidden fruit from the Garden of Eden, symbolic of forbidden knowledge and temptation. These symbols do more than sell products. They carry powerful archetypal associations rooted in the consumer's unconscious, forging a connection between the brand and myth. Beyond graphic symbols, advertising slogans and visual campaigns explore themes of light and darkness, order and chaos, central ideas in occultism and the duality between good and evil. Are these elements merely design choices, or are they deliberate attempts to introduce occult values into our society? The continuous use of esoteric symbols in advertising raises the question: is modern advertising genuinely selling a product, or is it engaged in a deeper process, symbolically promoting a worldview and an openness to the occult? With these elements, the power of marketing and subliminal messages becomes more than just a tool for sales. It suggests an invisible web of symbols and values that capture the consumer's mind and spirit, connecting them, consciously or not, to a universe of occult forces that permeate our lives. In the underworld of elite gatherings, a specific type of event has become the focus of theories and controversial accounts: white parties, exclusive gatherings where celebrities, business moguls, and prominent political figures come together to celebrate, socialize, and, according to some testimonies, perform occult rituals and practices that evoke a dark, ritualistic undertone. These events, especially notable in Hollywood circles and New York's high society, possess distinct characteristics that go beyond ordinary parties and seem to follow a pattern of ceremonies tracing back to esoteric and sectarian practices. White parties, as the name suggests, require attendees to dress in white, a color traditionally associated with purity but which, in these contexts, assumes a far more symbolic meaning. Here, white represents a state of preparation and purification for rituals or other dynamics that may follow the party. Dressed in white, guests participate in activities ranging from the use of illicit substances to symbolic practices that, according to witnesses, have an explicitly occult character. For example, rapper and businessman P. Diddy is known for his annual white parties, which are legendary and attract Hollywood elites and other influential figures. Although his New Year's Eve party in St. Bart's is officially a celebration of success and glamour, numerous accounts suggest that the true intentions behind the event are much darker. Former guests have mentioned the presence of rituals involving esoteric symbols and even practices that suggest a type of initiation for those seeking fame and success. Former associates and figures from the music industry comment that Diddy's parties are known for involving bizarre behavior and the presence of occult symbols, revealing a facet of celebrity culture rarely seen by the public. One of the most disturbing connections to these events is Jeffrey Epstein, a controversial figure who used his network and exclusive parties to attract the powerful and engage in practices far beyond what was socially acceptable. Epstein, in addition to being an influential public figure, was a frequent name at high society events and elite parties, many of which followed the same pattern as P. Diddy's white parties. According to some sources, these events were organized to create an environment where social and ethical norms became irrelevant, providing a space for ritualistic activities and, possibly, for rituals of submission and control over young and vulnerable figures. Accounts from individuals who participated in these parties, both those of Epstein and other celebrities, describe an almost ritualistic atmosphere. In interviews and documentaries, former guests mention details such as environments decorated with mystical symbols, images of ancient gods, and even statues of entities like Baphomet, widely known in occultism as the symbol of balance between light and darkness and frequently associated with initiation rituals in secret societies. Many who attended these events report a sense of discomfort and the presence of a heavy energy, as though the atmosphere was charged with something beyond the material, something that evoked a dark, spiritual presence. These parties are not just social gatherings, but represent the point of connection between elites and occult practices. For many involved in the esoteric field, white parties are said to be events where the elites celebrate their allegiance to a higher power that transcends the physical world, offering control over material reality in exchange for their loyalty. This is reminiscent of documented rituals from ancient occult sects, where devotion to dark entities was rewarded with power and protection. In the case of these modern parties, the theory suggests that elites seek to reinforce or renew their pacts with forces offering success and influence in exchange for practices that reaffirm this alliance. One of the darkest aspects of these parties is the use of vulnerable figures, such as young people aspiring to success, who are drawn in by promises of fame and fortune. According to reports from some former attendees and staff, young guests at these events are often induced into extreme behaviors and, in some cases, to participate in practices reminiscent of initiation rituals. These young people are, according to witnesses, exposed to substances and encouraged to perform acts that symbolically connect them to the energies and influences of the elites present. In an occult context, this echoes practices of submission where the initiate is baptized under the gaze of the elite, symbolizing entry into a cycle where success depends on obedience to certain hidden rules. The controlled and intense atmosphere of these events is also highlighted by visual and performance elements reminiscent of ancient rituals. In some white parties, for example, witnesses report the presence of choreographed dances with movements that evoke invocations, ritualistic gestures commonly associated with entity invocations or the manipulation of occult energies. For those familiar with esoteric symbolism, these movements and gestures are forms of energetic activation, where the guests, even if unconsciously, participate in a collective ritual. The connection between white parties and devil worship is strengthened by the repetition of specific themes and symbols. In the Book of Revelation, we find descriptions of the beast and the Great Babylon, a figure symbolizing the corruption and decadence of elites, aligned with dark power and the promise of wealth and luxury. Some scholars associate this figure with today's cult, where corrupt elites practice ostentation and hedonism at exclusive events, consuming the rarest and most expensive luxuries, constantly reaffirming their privileged status and commitment to higher powers. Another commonly associated element at these events is the practice of moral transgression as a form of devotion. According to reports, many extreme behaviors encouraged at these parties involve the breaking of taboos, reminiscent of ancient ritualistic practices where norm violation was considered a way to draw closer to absolute power. This concept of transgression is strongly linked to Lucifer, the fallen angel who, by rebelling against divine order, became the ultimate symbol of unrestricted freedom. In certain white parties, the presence of extreme behaviors and the encouragement of hedonism and exploitation are considered by many as acts of indirect veneration of this entity. Finally, the exclusivity and secrecy surrounding these events indicate the hierarchical nature of these circles, recalling ancient cults and sects where rituals were restricted to initiates and those who proved their loyalty. For those who participate, continuous access to these events is not only a social privilege but a symbol of adherence to an implicit pact with the elites and their principles. Former attendees report that, for many guests, access to these events signifies something much deeper. It is an acceptance that success and fame are granted by those who hold the keys to power, keys supposedly handed to them by forces beyond the physical. White parties have therefore become a modern symbol of a pact between the powerful and occult entities, a union of material wealth and spiritual commitment to forces of darkness. For observers and critics, these events are the embodiment of an elite that increasingly distances itself from what is considered normal in order to pursue absolute power, where success and wealth are seen as fruits of an alliance with the occult. As we explore the symbols and hidden messages permeating art, pop culture, and even everyday products, it becomes increasingly evident that these elements are not present by chance. They reflect an ancient connection between material power and dark spiritual influences, a silent alliance that shapes perceptions and establishes hidden values without most people realizing. Whether in the music we listen to, the films we watch, or even the brands we use daily, there seems to be an underlying force, rooted in history, perpetuating the cult of ancient entities and fostering values contrary to what is traditionally considered light and virtue. These subtle messages and symbols serve as a bridge for demonic entities and occult forces to influence human behavior, normalizing what was once seen as forbidden and subversive. But are these forces acting only in the realm of ideas, or are they truly shaping the collective unconscious and directing our choices? If you're interested in exploring more about spirituality, I've specially selected some videos filled with deep insights and fascinating discoveries that you'll love. Just click on one of them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and spiritual learning. Your commitment to knowledge is the first step to transforming your reality.